Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I had a hard time trying to find my slides. Sorry. Um, my name is Sayed Ali Avcu. I am the Director of Internationalization um, at Eurasian National University. I updated my information, but I cannot find that slide. So this was my old credentials. I used to work in Kyrgyzstan. Who is from Kyrgyzstan? Yeah, go Kyrgyzstan. My родной. This is a paper article that I published, and this is about small states and economic integrations, Kyrgyzstan and Eurasian Economic Union. How Kyrgyzstan made a decision to join Eurasian Economic Union. And the main question I start with is that what does influence a small state decision to join economic integration process? And and my assumption is that the small states behave differently than large states in international relations. And if especially Kyrgyz colleagues remember that there were so many discussions in Kyrgyz society whether to join or not to join the Eurasian Economic Union. And and this is, I don't know, it's a good analogy or not, but I made it resemblance to a party girl proposed by a powerful man. This is, party girl is Kyrgyzstan enjoying multi-vector foreign policy and relations with China. As we know that Kyrgyzstan joined early World Trade Organization and enjoying the benefits and importing goods from China and selling to Central Asia and Russia. And this way, actually, Kyrgyzstan prospered despite not having any significant natural resources. So remember that Karasu and Dordoy bazaars were one of the largest in Central Asia. But then Russia comes and says, come to join the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Kyrgyzstan doesn't know what to do. So, and then remember that Atambayev also said, we are choosing the lesser of evil, no offense to the member states of these organizations. And, and then he didn't mention, of course, the other evil. And who is the other evil? Anyone? Kyrgyz colleagues? What is the other evil for Kyrgyzstan besides, Eurasian Economic Union? China, yeah? Because, Kyrgyzstan and with the rest of other Central Asian countries they are afraid that China will take over. And as we all know that Kyrgyzstan finally signed the agreement, and and then finally joined in August 6, 2015 and become a full member. And let's look at what makes a small state a small state. Small state is more like, I don't know the definitions, but I know when I see one kind of case. You all know that the world system is a Westphalian system, is a state system, international system. And the states are classified in all sizes and difference. When you look at the map, you see all kind of states, yeah? It's like Russia is the largest at top of the map. And we don't know why Russia is at top, because you can also draw a map upside down, yeah? And Russia can be at the bottom. And then some of the states you cannot even see in the map. They are so small. They have to put an arrow and then mark as a state. It's like Monaco and some very small states. And small states have been observed to be different from their larger neighbors in economic structure and in domestic policy making frameworks, and to act differently in security policy, in international relations, and in international organizations such as the European Union. So they act differently because of their size. There are two definitional approach. One is objective, trying to define objectively. And according to this definition, that states with a very limited resource base, population, GDP, and geographical size. These are the objective criteria. In terms of population size, cutoff point, there is no agreement. Some says like 10 million, some says 3 millions for state to be small. Of course, there are subjective criteria, and a state might be small in terms of resources, but it might have a power and influence. Small state characterizes specific state's position towards its environment, which is characterized certain deficiency in influence and in economy related to large powers. For example, like comparing Netherlands with Mongolia. No offense to friends from Mongolia, who are our students, came from Mongolia. Netherlands is only 40,000 square kilometer compared to Mongolia, 1.5 million square kilometer. And in terms of GDP, Netherlands has 880 billion, and Mongolia is only 11.5 billion GDP. So you can who's the really small state? Is Mongolia or Netherlands? So this these are the, in terms of influence, that the Netherlands of course has more influence in international arena than Mongolia. And as my research question is that why small states decide to join regional integrations? In the literature, there are three reasons for a small state to join regional integrations. One is economic, one is political, and the third one is security. The first dimension is the economic, as small state wants to take advantage of being part of a large market. Have you heard the Ricardo principle? Have you heard Ricardo? Anyone? What is Ricardo's comparative advantage policy? Anyone? Economist? Anyone would like to answer? What is comparative advantage? Я не могу понимать по-русски хорошо. Try in English. You understand me, right? Yeah? Okay. But anyway, according to Ricardo, the comparative advantage principles, that each state should produce what they can produce best and optimally, cheaply. And then they shouldn't try to produce other things that they cannot, and then they trade. For example, I don't know, like Georgia produce good wine, yeah, and but Korea produce phones, so that the Georgia sells phone and then Korea sells phones. Say it again. Well, this I think little different. Opportunity cost is that something that you are missing if you don't produce, if you don't do it. Yeah, opportunity cost is, but the comparative advantage is that every country produce what they can to produce best. For small states, this makes sense because let's say Georgia cannot produce cars. I mean, they can, but invest all the resources to producing car, and then they don't have big market to support this base. Very small population. So for them, it is not feasible to invest, all this car industry, and with a small population. But for big states, it makes sense, like China or Brazil or Russia, because it has a big population and can support, even without exporting, can support the base. Yeah. So this is the idea. For small states, since they don't have big market, it's always good to be part of a larger market so that they can sell what they produce better or cheaply. Like for Kyrgyzstan, could be meat or fruits and other things. So this is the idea, economic reasons for small states to want to join um, regional integration. Yeah. And in terms of political reasons, if you look at the Cohen's um, classification, he classified states in terms of system determining, system influencing, system affecting, and system ineffectual states. Since many small states are in the last category, which system ineffectual, and lack political power and influence themselves, they prefer to be part of the greater entity. Um, I will not go into details to explain them, but the system determining is the states that has really big power in the international system, like Americans or Russians or Chinese, and system influencing states like maybe like Germany, Japan. Um, System affecting would be much smaller powers. Um, I don't know, like Iran or Saudi Arabia. And system ineffectual states are, no offense again to Kyrgyz friends, like Kyrgyzstan has no influence on international system, or Monaco for that matter, or Uruguay. Yeah. And these are the Cohen's classification. So the small states don't have any influence in international arena. They prefer to be part of the bigger entities, like part of being a European Union. Gives these small states a really big power in terms of system affecting. And security reasons, um, that because of international systems, that the small states might feel vulnerable, and then they might prefer to join regional cooperations. Of course, the economic unions are not security unions or pacts, like collective treaty organization, which is Armenians are also part of it. But nonetheless, it gives some kind of a protection. It's like being part of European Union gives a protection to small states in Europe. Like say if Moldova becomes part of European unions, wouldn't fear from Russian intervention, for example. And by the way, I'm writing another articles that I claim that Armenia joining Eurasian Economic Union is also mostly because of the security reasons rather than other two. Yeah, all politicians says things, but we academics we don't believe them all the time. Yeah. Right. Well, that's another topic that how we can discuss after the presentation. The situation of Armenia is also a small state decided to join union. And I believe there are some other dimensions for Kyrgyzstan, that cultural reasons, that being a part of the former Soviet Union, Kyrgyzstan was already have a cultural affinity with other member states. Russian is widely spoken, and so Russian channels are viewed daily more than Kyrgyz channels. And another dimension is that leadership and political elite. Um, have you heard the omni-balancing? Anyone is the international relations major here? Yeah, have you heard omni-balancing? There are terms in international relations. Omni-balancing is this, that the domestic leaders are making foreign alliances to consolidate their power inside the state. So this is called omni-balancing. So they are getting power from international system to get stronger inside. So this is also part of the Kyrgyzstan's joining the Eurasian Economic Union. And here, if I look at my dependent and independent variables, that what I'm trying to explain is my dependent variable, which is Kyrgyzstan's decisions to join Eurasian Economic Union. And independent variables are dependency to Russia, economic weakness, access to a larger market, cultural hegemony, bandwagoning effects. Have you heard of bandwagoning? Bandwagoning is that small states join big states in international system rather than they go with them in international system. And the Kyrgyzstan pretty much was following, let's say, CIA's decisions in international system, voting with Russia and other CIS countries. Security concerns and fear of China. These are the hypotheses that I'm testing. Because small states have small domestic market, external trade constitute higher portion of the GDP. Therefore, small states seeks preferential trade agreements and economic integration. If a small state is already dependent on a powerful state, it is easy to make integration decisions. For example, Kyrgyzstan receives subsidized oil from Russia. Russia doesn't sell oil to Kyrgyzstan in international market. Actually, the recent revolution in 2010 was one of the reasons, because the Kyrgyzstan was buying oil with the subsidized price and then selling to Americans in the base, or Tajikistan with the international price. So this was upset Russia, and Russia didn't support the government in that time. Since small states lack political power and influence, they try to gain more power by being a part of larger union. Small states have disproportionately bigger voice in decision-making mechanism in a union. Therefore, joining an economic union is attractive for small states. For example, like when you become a member, you have one vote. Let's say Germany has one vote, and also, very small Liechtenstein also have one vote. So this is gives them unproportionally big power in the unions. Small state security decisions, two options: neutral or finding powerful friend in international system. So small states, either they try to be neutral or they find powerful friends. And my hypothesis is that if there is a sense of security threat nearby, small states choose bandwagoning rather than being a neutral. Fear of China or Uzbekistan for Kyrgyzstan was enough to bandwagon in this sense. If a country is located in peaceful area, integration decision is more like economic. Like for Norway, not joining European Union is more economic rather than security, because there is no security threat to Norway. Norway is also being a small state. And in terms of cultural, if a small country is under the influence of ideological hegemony of powerful states, it is easy to make integration decision. I claim that like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan is more like under the influence of Russian culture than, let's say, Azerbaijan or Uzbekistan. This can be, of course, contested. And for the especially older populations, there is a nostalgia for Soviet Union, that they still remember the good old days, that jobs were guaranteed and were more peaceful, and they didn't have to deal with wild capitalism, which is going on in Kyrgyzstan now. So, and lastly, if leadership is concerned about consolidation of power, it will be easy to make integration choices to protect against internal and external threat. I will not go into details, but Kazakhstan is certainly a small country, small state, and in terms of economy, Kazakhstan more like agriculture and trade. Sorry, Kyrgyzstan. Why do I keep confusing them both? Kyrgyzstan became a W3 World Trade Organization very early, and as I mentioned, that re-exporting goods from China to Central Asia and Russia, 85% import from China is re-exported to other countries. No significant production, depend on foreign investment. In terms of mining, Kumtor mines is 3 billion, and depending on foreign aid, and also labor remittance is 40% of GDP, which is the second in the world. And can you guess the first one? Yeah, become first? Oh, because the Tajiks were first. Oh, yeah, compared to GDP, yeah. So this is the highest in the world, which is, of course, not good. But those workers are working in Russia mainly. So there are also already, the point is, lots of connections with Russia in terms of economy, culture, politics, all of that. And when we look at the foreign, this is quite a little old, but it's still same. Kyrgyzstan export Switzerland is the first because of the gold. Most gold goes to Switzerland. And Kazakhstan is second in terms of export. In terms of import, Russia is first and China is second, and Kazakhstan is third. So you can see that there's also more trade with the Eurasian economic countries, except Belarus and Armenia, which they are far away. Advantages of joining was that trade with the Eurasian Customs Union countries and custom revenues will increase, border security will be ensured, investment and the labor remittance will increase. Disadvantage is that losing its re-export character, therefore weakening of the bazaars because of the high tariffs. And it's already started that these bazaars are weakening. Therefore, unemployment of people working in those bazaars, the rise of in prices of the consumer goods because of higher custom tariffs, goods from China and Turkey would be expensive, and that's therefore inflation. And conclusion that economic disadvantages outweigh advantages economically. And then the puzzle is that why Kyrgyzstan agreed to join to the Eurasian Economic Custom Union, which was the custom unions back then, despite the economic losses, then we have to consider non-economic variables to decision to join economic unions. I think I already talked about this, why political reasons that Kyrgyzstan wants to join. So my hypotheses were correct in terms of that. And staying out of the union would be isolationist and vulnerable to Chinese effects. And the third one is Kyrgyzstan used to have good relations with Kazakhstan and looks up to Kazakhstan in many political issues and economic issues, and hopefully this conflict will be resolved soon between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. I already mentioned the security reasons that the bandwagoning that Kyrgyzstan choose with Russia is already a member of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, and there is a conflict in Fergana Valley between Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, especially Kerimov sees that he said water can become a reason for war. So this was quite a threat by Kyrgyzstan from Uzbekistan. And we already talked about the cultural hegemony of Russia. In Bishkek, the Russian is widely spoken, and so we don't need to go into details. And in Kyrgyzstan, you know, the revolutions are common. Foreign powers are reportedly involved in the revolutions. They say the first one was designed by Americans and second was one designed by Russians. And by joining Eurasian economic unions, that this will not be possible anymore, because already joining with Russia, that Russia will not have revolution and Americans will not dare to have revolutions. And we all know that the Americans were kicked out from the base, and the relations got sour with the Americans. And the thesis finally is that for small states, other factors such as security concerns, cultural hegemony, leadership play a strong role in joining economic unions, despite economically is not viable. Because Kyrgyzstan's dependence on Russia, security concerns, fear of China, continuation of Russia's cultural hegemony, Kyrgyzstan's decided to join Eurasian Economic Union, despite the economically was not feasible, at least in short term. That's all my presentation. I welcome questions and comments and discussions. Lastly, if we look at international relations theories, that who is right, whether liberals or realists or constructivists, all the economic integrations are the area of liberalism, because that's, you know, liberals love to integration and cooperations in international arena. The consideration of other factors such as security concerns and cultural factors, leadership choices, forces us to consider realism and constructivism in integration choices. Thank you. I have the full paper if you want to read it. Here is my email. Send me an email and I will send it to you all. I don't know, you can find it online either, but I will send it to you.
My question, I want to ask about your opinion. How do you think about Kyrgyzstan? It was too early to join Eurasian Economic Union for Kyrgyzstan, or should we not join because like there are a lot of disadvantages that we see in your presentation. Yeah.
What happened? I don't know. I actually didn't go back to research after almost 2 years. Yeah, no, what kind of effects the Eurasian Economic Union on Kyrgyzstan. I haven't followed up this topic because I was busy with other topics that I moved on. But I don't know really. I cannot tell either way because it's not up to me to decide. It's a value judgment, and it's up to Kyrgyz people to decide and which they decided to join. What do you think? Are you from Kyrgyzstan?
Yeah, I'm from Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
I think we didn't have a choice. We actually should because you're told that we're a small country and we need these political issues. That's why actually we should join. And maybe it was too early to join because our economics is not so strong. We didn't develop our local producers in order to produce something and export. Maybe it was early, and entering WTO, it was also too early, in my opinion.
Even joining WTO.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's claimed that the WTO really helped Kyrgyzstan to develop in terms of trade. So there is a trading middle class prospered in those bazaars. So because the Kyrgyzstan was the only one, an early one, joined in 1998. I think recently only Kazakhstan joined, yeah, not too long ago, or Russia. Still, is Russia joined? Yes, part of. Yeah, now it doesn't matter anymore because all these countries are part of WTO. But in that time, it matters because the Kyrgyzstan used to get the lower tax from China or from Turkey, other countries, and sell them to Central Asia and Russia. You can ask Russian, and then they will be translated. Hopefully.
Mr. Abjov, thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Baghdad Waliyev. Yes, thank you. And I'm from Uralsk, it's West Kazakhstan. And I have a question about what is your point of view and what is the perspective of Eurasian Economic Union? How do you see our union in 10 years? Thank you.
Also, I haven't studied the whole union. Hopefully, we are thinking about writing a book about whole union. But I think it is amazing that this union was established and it is working despite the sanctions from the West, because it coincided with the sanctions just when it became a full economic union. Despite that, it is still exist. I think this is a big accomplishment. And as you know, if you studied integrations are very difficult. It is very hard to get countries together. And if you studied Central Asia, they tried to integration for 20 years and nothing happened. Yeah. And finally, Russia came and and then this was possible. So this, integration theory is that usually you need a powerful state to start integration and continue, like Germany, France, or Brazil in South America. I don't know what will happen in future, but there are some issues that the Russia, which is the main power force, couldn't fulfill some of the promises. Like, for example, Russia withdrew from the dam deal in Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, that they decided not to build the hydraulic dam on Naryn River, yeah. So that these sanctions and lower oil and gas prices are actually damaging the union, because Russia and Kazakhstan depend on the exporting oil, and they enjoyed this process, these high prices during the 2000s, but now the prices are down, and maybe they are kept artificially to harm rogue states in international system like Iran, Venezuela, Russia. But it is still functioning and continued, and if it survives this process, this stage, I think it will be much stronger in the future, and will have probably more countries like Tajikistan. I don't know what happened. Anyone? No one from Tajikistan, yeah, because they will also talk about Tajikistan joining. Maybe Mongolia and some other states might join. And it might be weak still, but I think it will survive. That's my opinion. What do you think? Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. As we know, before the elections in Kyrgyzstan, there were a hard situation on the border, Kyrgyz-Kazakhstan border. And do you think that it will change Kyrgyzstan's attitude to Eurasian Economic Union, to the whole Eurasian Economic Union? Because they said that Eurasian Union must solve this problem, and they didn't. And the time was long, and so they were not very.
Yeah. Well, so again, this is unfortunate, but I consider this is a temporary situation, because between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan there are not real issues, and this will probably will resolved after Atambayev is gone and retired, and new president probably will think differently. But you're right that even Atambayev said he told Putin that he should do something, and if it is going to continue, what is the point of having Eurasian Economic Union? The Kyrgyz are suffering and they are under blockage. Yeah, this is, but unless the union can have mechanisms to solve these issues, maybe like court system and some other mechanisms to solve this kind of issues, this might be a problem in the future. So this is actually could be a test for Eurasian Economic Union to do something about this. But so far it was silence. Yeah, I didn't hear anything from in terms of union that resolving or mediating this conflict somehow, because it is economic. It's that Kyrgyzs cannot sell their goods to Kazakhstan, which they depend on it. Yeah, it's a good testing point. If it continues for a long time, I don't know how it might damage. Kyrgyzstan might decide to withdraw. But hopefully this will not continue that long. What do you think? Well, just don't agree, say something. Either I say something right or they don't want to. Okay. And where are you from? Russia. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. It was really useful. I would like to know your personal opinion about Kyrgyzstan's and Kazakhstan's relationship now, and compare with Soviet Union period when they were a member of Soviet Union? Thank you.
You know, now they are like sovereign states, and so when before that they were not, and there were other mechanisms to deal with the between states, and so when sovereign states has different relations, and sometimes this kind of things can inflate, not unnecessarily, to my opinion, that you know, either Kazakhstan should not support anyone because that will be against the international relations, yeah, that not to interfere domestic politics of another country. And that wasn't actually a big deal. That, like, you know, you can have a preference that who wants to be president, and then Atambayev reacted very harshly because I think he's not a diplomat. To my opinion, is a less diplomatic president ever in this area. So he's not a diplomatic person. He doesn't. He inflates the conflicts rather than, you know, trying to decrease them. So when he's gone, I think things will be different, unless that this new president will continue the same rhetoric, which I think his character is different than Atambayev. Yeah, you agree?
I agree with you. Thank you for your answer.
Yes.
You told that cultural, security, and political reasons are more important for Kyrgyzstan. And I want to know your opinion about some benefits and reasons for Kazakhstan in Eurasian Union.
I think Kazakhstan's position is different. In terms of classifying the states, I think Kazakhstan is moving to more like system influencing countries, and it was the Kazakhstan's idea too, yeah, to begin with. So that's Kazakhstan actually adopts this idea. Is the Eurasianism is part of state identity of Kazakhstan, that have a union in Eurasia, whichever you defined it. So one is that being a initiator of this idea, that Kazakhstan, I think, strongly believes it to this ideal. And secondly, also the similar things that Kazakhstan is benefiting from trades, but it's more like I think it is not as I also didn't study how affected Kazakhstan position, like Kazakhstan economy. But the recent, I think, when was it, 2 days ago, that Nazarbayev said something that if sanctions continue, I listened in Russians, and someone can translate to me what did he say exactly? You know, he said that we might think about, yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? What did he say exactly, Nazarbayev? Anyone? I didn't get that one word at the end, and like, если продолжает санкции на России, мы будем. That word I didn't understand. So, anyone listen the news? No, no one listened his words. So the point is that actually Kazakhstan might be a little worried about being part of sanction blocked, because Kazakhstan tries to really internationalize and diversify economy and be neutral in the international system. You know, one of my students are writing about you know, Kazakhstan's mediation efforts. So, but with the Eurasian Economic Union, is unjustly Kazakhstan is also put in that category, which is sanctions against against the union. So if also this continue in long term, we don't know what will happen. Once might be strengthened because of the, culturally the we against the West, new Cold War. Who knows? God forbid, I hope not. And maybe it will be resolved. The sanctions will be lifted, and things will continue. But I think this is the most worrying things in terms of the fate of the union in future. That the clash between West and the Eurasian Economic Union. So did I answer? What is your opinion?
Thank you.
Do you have any idea?
No, I think also that economical is more powerful reason for our integration, not political, not security, but only economic.
Yes. And Kazakhstan doesn't want this integration to go all the way to the political integration. Nazarbayev stated this several times. This is just an economic integration. If you study, I'm sure you are studying integration, that integration has 7 stages, yeah? And the last one is the political. So as long as Kazakhstan is objecting this, the union will stay in the economic union stage, not the political. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for.
We can ask about Turkey and the Eurasian Economic Union.
Well, yeah, Turkey is having an identity crisis now. Do you know what identity crisis? So you don't know who you are. Like you wake up and then suddenly you don't know who you are, because Turkey was for 200 years was a part of West, and because of the Soviet threat, it joined the NATO, is a part of NATO as well. But after the Cold War, that international system changed. Remember the third image, level of analysis, third stage, that this international system is causing Turkey to reconsider these alliances, because the West doesn't need Turkey anymore, as in Cold War, and because of that, they are not protecting Turkey. And now in Syria, that Turkey claims that Americans are supporting the PKK terrorist organizations against Turkey and giving them weapons, which Turkey objects. And in Syria also, the Westerners let Turkey down. And with all these considerations, and Turkey became more powerful economically, and it is the 17th large economy in the world, and it's in the strategic positions, and doesn't want to be considered as a part of West. It wants to be a state itself, as a power, trying to be a system affecting state. So with this now, and with all disappointment with the European Union, as you know, that Turkey has a custom union with European Union, but they keep rejecting for 50 years. This is the same analogy with the marriage. We are hoping that the Europe will marry us, but Europe has other wives, and then they will never divorce them and marry Turkey. So we are losing hope, and lost hope actually. Now the joining Euro is Eurasian Economic Union is around 30. It used to be 75%, and now it is a 30%. Has a problem with the European countries, with Germany, with the United States, and this illusions in Syria that the Turkey is now thinking other options. We don't have to beg the Westerners anymore. Let's look at the East. What is there? There is a Russia, traditionally enemy, but not recently a friend. because lots of trade with Russia. Turkey receives 50% of energy from Russia, gas and oil, and exports agriculture, and Antalya is a Russian town almost. So all of these that President Erdogan said several times that we might join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or Eurasian Economic Union. Nazarbayev mentioned that Turkey should join Eurasian Economic Union. But if you have a custom union with another union, you cannot join. Yeah, if you are married, you cannot divorce. You cannot marry another person. So the Turkey is already married to Europe, which is not very equal marriage. It is like, but we cannot divorce either easily. Turkey's 50% of trade is with the European Union. So we are dependent on Europe. Like, we are not selling high tech, but we sell consumer goods like textiles and home appliances and things like that to Europe, which is a big part of Turkish economy. So it is not easy decisions, but in long term, now in Syria, Turkey is cooperating more with Russia and Iran than the West, and thinking more cooperations with Eurasian Economic Union and Shanghai Cooperation Organization in future. And who knows what will happen in. And then in West also, they are not fond of Turkey now. Some claims that Turkey should be expelled from NATO. It is a turbulent times, and identity crisis continue. Till you find a new identity, this will continue. It is a painful process, but we will see what happens.
Thank you for your presentation. And my question is, what do you think about future of this organization? Because nowadays we can see a lot of problems between Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, and between Russia and Belarus. What do you think about future? Maybe